Hi, this is Chapter 17, Civil War Review. We'll probably have to break this one up into at least two parts today. So we have a lot of work to do, so let's begin. Again, Chapter 17, Civil War Review. Obviously, this whole major divide in our nation begins with the election of 1860. For those of you that don't recall, there was a four-person election with Constitutional Unionist Party, John Bell, Northern Democrat, Stephen Douglas, Southern Democrat, John C. Breckinridge, and the Prairie Lawyer, everyone's favorite, the rail splitter from Illinois, the Republican Abraham Lincoln, which brings about, which brings about the South Carolinian order for secession, saying if that 6'4" gentleman becomes the 16th president of the United States, we are going to secede, because the Republican Party is all about the abolition movement. And so November 1860, Lincoln gets elected, narrowly 59% of the electoral vote. He gets elected president of the United States. And then in December of 1860, South Carolina, true to its word, there's only, at least we can say this about South Carolina, they are always, their words like gold. So they secede, 1860. And then, remember, we talked about this in class, that most people don't realize that they actually they took possession of a fort, Fort Moultrie, which again, doesn't really have that big of significance in the chapter, but when Lincoln's talking about protecting federal property in his inauguration, that's what he's referencing. And that obviously will foreshadow to Fort Sumter. Between December of 1860 and March 4th, 1861, we see 6 more southern states secede and join the Confederacy. So our first task is really to talk a refresher on the inaugural address by Abraham Lincoln that he gives on March 4th, 1861. The key things that we need to remember from his inaugural. One, he states, the momentous issue of the Civil War is in your hands, my dissatisfied fellow countrymen, and not mine. All right, so in essence, Lincoln's saying if there is a Civil War, it's because the southern states are in an act of rebellion. He is not acknowledging secession because he knows that secession can't work. You can't physically break off like you would, a piece of chocolate or whatever, a Kit Kat. You can't do that. South Carolina, the South, you just physically can't divide. And so he's not even acknowledging secession. And his big issue is, of course, is he's telling the southern states, I do not have the constitutional authority to abolish slavery. So your property is safe. And he's asking you one time, tell me, when was your constitutional rights violated? And of course, the answer is 0. They weren't. So Lincoln's trying to reassure the southern states that I do not have the constitutional authority to take away your property. And then, obviously, he states at the end, I am loath to close. Dave Frantonis is here. Dave, say hi to my class.
Hey, class.
See, it's all about people during the holiday time, talking about the Civil War. And Lincoln finishes up his inaugural saying, if there is a Civil War, South, you yourselves have to be the aggressors. For me, the purpose of this war is to preserve, protect, get that union together, all right? That's it. It's not to abolish slavery. And so that is the purpose of the war in 1861. We all know the genius of Lincoln shifts the purpose of the war later on in 1863. So let's go a month later, April 12th, in Fort Sumter, Charleston, South Carolina. The Confederate military shelled this Union fort, and as Lincoln states in his inauguration, he will defend federal property. And so now the war is officially underway. The South started it in the attack on Fort Sumter. So now that we know there's going to be a war, we have to remember the early notion was this is going to be a pretty easy war for the North. And so I want you guys to go back and look at your list of advantages, North and South. This chart that you had that we filled out. Right? Please go back and take a look at that. The North had obviously railroads. Northern agriculture is crops that you can actually eat. Okay, and so the South, they don't have a crop that can feed their troops. North does. So North has industry. North has edible agriculture. They have shipping. They have manufacturing. 97% of all the weapons manufacturing is done in the North. They had more money. They had more capital. They had more people. They had more workers, more soldiers. This looks like it's going to be a pretty. And they also had Abraham Lincoln as an advantage. The South, they had something that you can't really measure. The will, the cause, the determination, however you want to phrase it. They had the states' rights, which is near and dear to their hearts. They got to fight a war of defense. They also had the keenest military minds on their side. So, even though you can't measure a lot of that, the South obviously has proved that this is not going to be a one-punch war. It's going to be they're going to elongate it out as long as possible. And of course, the biggest hope for the South, Great Britain. Right? They're going to court Great Britain. They say, we have this cotton. Y'all need cotton for your industrial revolution over there, your textile manufacturing. So the South knows that they need their cotton. Dave, take care, buddy.
Bye.
We know that the cotton will help fuel the British economy. So Britain's very interested in helping out in this war. And besides that, Great Britain has food they can trade. Great Britain also has weapons that they can trade. The Enfield rifle, which will become standard issue for the Confederate soldiers. And hopefully, if everything goes well for the South, they will have troops from Great Britain. And so that is a huge asset that could play to the sides of the South. And so that's kind of, from Fort Sumter, which is April the 12th, all the way to July 21st, which of course the goal of the Union military is to take down the southern capital of Richmond. Lincoln hires